Okay, this is Wednesday, fourth week of April after Easter this year. I just want to talk slight update on the car. Not much has changed since yesterday. I have got all the wires in and hooked up for the vintage air, and I've been routing ductwork. I've also got the shifter in. We talked about that yesterday. What I wanted to do is kind of clear up maybe some confusion some of y'all may have installing vintage air on a 70 to 72 Chevelle, Monte Carlo, El Camino. It'll all be the same. Just kind of wanted to show the ducts, kind of where they go. 12 inch here, 18 inch goes here, 220 inches here. They go to the center vent coming out in the dash. This goes to this vent, that goes to that vent over there in the dash. Okay, these are 2.5 inch ducts. These are 2 inch ducts. The relay that it talks about in the manual, you just want to mount it at a secure location as well as the battery circuit breaker, and then you can tie these wires up. So that's pretty much, you have one wire pigtail coming off this main harness that plugs in here. This harness plug here comes off of the controller in the dash, which I've already mounted in the dash earlier today. As far as I know, this car is ready to reinstall the dash. I got Cowboy coming next week to do the glass. Any of y'all here in Anderson probably know him. But here's the wiring coming out side of the car. This goes to the heater control valve. This goes to a chassis ground. The two white wires, the skinny one and the thick one, go to ground to the battery. I don't understand why they have these wires go all the way to the battery, which I do that. I guess they just want to make sure you've got the best ground possible. I'm not a wiring expert, so I'm not going to ground them on the engine or the frame. I'm going to do what it says. I'm going to go to the battery. The red wire goes to the battery positive. That's what keeps its power. Okay, there's also two more wires. There's a binary switch up here that'll be mounted in the evaporator. I mean, not the evaporator, the receiver dryer. And there's two wires here that comes from the vintage air. With a dash out, you can do a nice job of routing good. The purple wire, or violet as they call it in the manual over there, goes to 12 volt switched power, which will be the ignition terminal on the fuse box. This lights the dash control panel up. So this will go to the lamps terminal on the fuse box, along with any other aftermarket gauges or anything of that nature that you may be wanting to light up under the dash or the console, or if you don't have the correct console harness. All that stuff needs to go to the lamps terminal to light everything up. It'll only come on when you pull the headlight switch on in the park light position. So just wanted to mention that. Again, this goes to switch power. Another thing I wanted to mention, since I'm under the dash, if you're running a Petronics unit, anything electronic distributor, you want a straight 12 volts all the time. So what I do is just take I believe this is a 10 gauge wire, and run it from the positive side on this car with a small distributor and Petronics small to the ignition terminal. That way you got a straight 12 volts going to the coil at all times. Naturally, these are the Petronics wires, and I haven't got the coil reinstalled yet. We're waiting on to install the oil pressure lines and all that stuff. So again, it's really starting to take shape at this point, but I just wanted to do a quick video to kind of show live and in person what all this stuff looks like under the dash. A lot of you would be lost. It doesn't affect me at all. I'm so familiar with the Monte Carlo and Chevelle under dash situation. It doesn't bother me a bit. But that goes to the headlight switch. This goes to the instrument cluster. This is a instrument cluster ground, which I usually run to a body ground instead of on the instrument cluster. To me, the factory, Mr. Mark on that, there's some things you can do to get a better ground. These are backup light wires and neutral safety and flasher and all that stuff. So all the factory radio harness is gone. Not radio, I'm sorry. The factory AC harness is gone. It's not reused. So you want to use the vintage air harness. And again, you just plug it in over here and you'll have power. The hose configuration on the manual, to me, is kind of confusing looking at it in black and white. They ought to take a picture of an actual car and do it. But just to get a better idea, you can see the way everything goes there. These are the 2-inch hoses. And then these are 2-inch hoses. Again, they go to up here in the dash up top. And these go to the left and right vents, which is 2.5-inch hoses. So just keep that in mind. Another thing you want to be aware of is I've got a bolt stuck in the factory dash mount over there. That'll have to be removed when the dash goes in. You have to have a lot of fun by putting that and hooking the dash stuff up with the factory mounting bracket on the firewall there. So here's your dash mounts here. So I'm going to get prepared to put the dash in. I got a few more things to check about the LEDs and getting the, I'll make sure all the dash lights are going to burn. And I'll do another video in a couple days, maybe next week, and show you how far I've gotten. But I just wanted mainly to show you, the vintage air situation. Since we're here on this video, I'll also show you, the relocation of the alternator and the compressor. Those are kind of fun to figure out looking at those those manuals, instruction manuals. So that's kind of the way they look. Okay, hopefully this will clear up a little bit of confusion. Until you've got the car bolted together, it's a good idea just to wrap this up and run that. I may not even hook any of this up after the car is painted and put it back together. Along with this, I'm going to curl these up and tie these up over here on the fender when I get the fender back on. So another thing, I briefly mentioned the situation with the grommets in the last video, but it's $1,700 kit by the time you pay shipping, and they don't include heater hoses. So you got to go ahead and might as well go ahead and buy heater hoses before you even get started. So anyway, any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, this is hopefully clear up a little bit on the vintage air for the 70-72 Chevelle Monte Carlo.